Do you feel at your current company, are you earning what you're worth in that situation? Do you get enough time off to do what you want to do? Are you married? Do you have family? Tell me about that. Just kind of get to know them. And really the most important one is, are you making enough money? I think that it softens it. I think that once you start asking questions, people start to open up to you. And the faster you can get them to open up to you, the faster you guys can become friends. And you can turn around and turn that prospect into an associate, a representative, a distributor, whatever it might be in your situation. So, with that said, Mike, let me turn it back over to you.
And I appreciate, every single one of you that have, you've taken the time, you've gotten involved with the leads, and you're getting ready to pick up that phone. And, what Michael just said was incredible. I mean, a simple survey, just, stay focused on that, be accountable with it. But here's something I want to share with you, because I know this happened to me, and I know this happened to many people out there in the industry. Sometimes that phone looks like it's 1,000 pounds, or it might feel like it's 5,000 pounds. And, we hesitate in getting ready to make that call. But here's something I want you to think about. I picked this up at a seminar many years ago from a multi-millionaire in the industry. And he said, look, if you're hesitating in making calls and prospecting, here's the bottom line. You have to ask yourself, will that prospect attend your funeral? And, here's the bottom line. Everybody we do business with, 99% of the people we interact with in the industry, especially when we're prospecting, we're recruiting, getting it into the system we're going to talk about here shortly, they're not going to show up at your funeral. So who cares what they think? Do your job. Get out there and get busy. Get crazy. Have some fun. Lighten up a little bit. You never know what phone call is going to make you a fortune. But seriously, if you had to put a sticky note on your computer, on your pitch book, whatever you got, will this prospect attend my funeral? Because you know what? They won't. Mike?
Well, and will they cry when they're there? If they do show up, the bottom line is if they're not going to cry, why give them any time? So don't worry about it. If they haven't sent you a check, if they haven't paid a bill for you, then you need to just understand that, it's all about where you are and where you're going into the future. A couple of enemies that I want to kind of share with you in this situation is as you're making these calls, and understand that, I used to read something called The Promise that I had picked up on the internet somewhere. This business is all about R&D. Most people call that research and development. I call it rob and duplicate, So you have some fun with that. But the bottom line is that there was somebody that sent out something called The Promise, and it was based on a story of a real successful network marketer that most people know that just became enormously successful. But it talked about some of the enemies that you're going to face when you're working through the numbers and making these calls. And enemy number one is rejection. Okay, so many people are afraid of that little word no, Mike. It blows me away. And I can understand that. That's okay, because we all start there. I believe that. But the bottom line is most people are going to say no. Just deal with it. I mean, it's okay. People say no. It's no big deal. You just move on to the yes. Watson said, the founder of IBM, or one of the top people in IBM, stated that in order to become successful, you need to double your rate of failure. And that's really what no means. The more no's you get, the more successful you're going to become. So work down that pattern. Understand that that's part of making the calls. Another one is deception. Some people say one thing and mean another and do something else. So understand that that's okay. Deception is out there. People are out there. Unfortunately, it's just kind of the way the world is. And so you learn how to deal with that. And that's really what I talked about earlier, is you start to become 10 feet tall and bulletproof. You're starting to realize that as you're working through that process, and you're starting to become calloused, and you just kind of accept it for what it is, and you move on. You continue to find the people that you want to work with anyways. Attrition. That's one of the main enemies that we deal with, is attrition. People are going to get in and people are going to drop out. That's okay. That's part of the process. That's part of the calls that you're making. As you make these calls, some people you're going to get them in, you're going to get excited and think that they're going to be the next big one in your company. Well, what happens is that they're going to drop out sometimes, and that's okay. It's how you deal with that makes the biggest difference in what you're doing in this business.